Hello everyone, welcome to this second episode of my favorite images from 2019. Once again, the images are in no particular order and represent my nature and wildlife selections from Florida and Tanzania. I've included a few video clips that will help with the backstory, so please do watch through the end, as I've included a clip of one of the largest wildebeest migrations of their crossing the Mara River. Hope you enjoy these, and I look forward to your comments. Cape Coral is famous for its burrowing owls. In fact, if a burrowing owl makes a nest in your property and you haven't built on that yet, you're not going to be able to build till the burrowing owl leaves the nest and doesn't return. Again, these creatures are absolutely wonderful to watch when they are sitting on the ground or tending their nest. The way they move their heads, as you will see in the little video clip, I just thoroughly enjoyed it and spent a lot of time with them. Typical of all owls, they can rotate their heads in all directions, and here's an example of this particular owl, which is the same one that you saw the still of, actually doing its head rotation. And this little fellow was preening and is furious in the way they preen themselves. Unlike other birds where it's a very slow process, these owls are just frantic in the way they preen. A reddish egret, just having caught a fish. Really beautiful birds. I love the coloration. I love some of their behavior, particularly the way they put their wings up and shade the water so that they can see their prey better. This one was, had grabbed this fish and just stayed with the fish in its beak for a long time without swallowing it. I guess it may not have been really hungry, but always a catch is better than no food at all. Snowy egrets are abundant in Florida, and the reason for this inclusion in this collection of images is I love the way the water is dripping off its feet as it takes off. And the other thing which I really enjoyed is the way the light is falling on its wings and casting a shadow of its head on the wing closest to the viewer. And I just found that to be inordinately interesting, something that you see once in a while. Light has to be in the right position, but here you have it. Behavioral scene from the Venice rookery. Two chicks in the nest, one being the dominant one, the other the runt. The runt will eventually perish, I guess, or get thrown out of the nest. The dominant chick is basically trying to force the parent to regurgitate the fish, which it does. And though the smaller chick gets it, the dominant chick will grab it out from the smaller one and basically swallow it, thereby leaving the smaller chick with no food. And eventually, as nature will show, the runt will perish. A short trip to Corkscrew Swamp, where I was able to get this barred owl. We just sat there posing, and I just find that the catchlight in his eyes were most interesting, and that's the reason for inclusion in this series. An osprey calling for its mate in its nest over in Sanibel Island. Absolutely gorgeous birds, really worth observing. So in October, I had the opportunity to go to Tanzania to test out the S1R with the new 70 to 200 f2.8 lens. I carried two bodies and two lenses just to be sure that in case something went wrong, the tests wouldn't be wasted. So the next series of images are from Tanzania. There are a few video clips in addition. And the first interesting subjects were a pair of cheetahs, as you will see now in the first image. This pair of cheetahs are actually brothers, and they are fairly satiated. Their stomachs are full. We sat and observed them for quite a while, hoping that they'd do something. But except for romp around and then just go and lay and go back to sleep, there was not much activity. But yet I found the way they are lying together, both observing whatever it is that they noticed in the distance, very, very alert, beautiful creatures, and I thoroughly enjoyed spending so much time with them. This is a lilac-breasted roller, one of the most beautiful birds in the African continent. This particular bird just sat on this perch, observing, waiting for insects to come out or be noticed on the ground, and then it would swoop down, grab it, and eat it in midair. This image is one of the few images in this series of the Tanzania images that were shot with the G9, the 5200 lens with a ×2 tele-extender. There was a small pride of lions, 4 cubs, 2 females and 1 large male. These cubs had been in the ravine in some sort of a pool of water, and they were all really slushy, but these are all females. The male cub just sat around doing nothing, didn't want to play with his sisters. The female lioness here in this particular case goes to the male lion. They're all hungry, they haven't eaten in a while, and it's sort of a message to say, well, don't worry, I'm going to go hunt. And that's what she did do. Now here you can see the male cub just sitting, not participating in the frolicking of the female cubs. Giraffes in Africa, particularly in the Serengeti, are absolutely wonderful creatures. Their gait is unlike any other animal, and they'll just stand and observe and watch you do your thing, and they'll do their thing. There's an unfortunate disease that has started spreading amongst these creatures, which basically makes their legs swell up, and then they're unable to remain mobile. And since they can't move around much, they do end up dying, and there is quite an epidemic, and hopefully they'll be able to find some sort of a cure for it pretty soon. Otherwise, this particular species is going to be in deep trouble. We found out that the lioness had in fact managed to get a wildebeest and kill it. Interesting situation here. The male is typically the first one to come and eat after a kill has been made. But in this case, I think the way it was described was that she and the cubs started eating. The male was asleep, and they were so hungry that the female basically felt it not appropriate to get the male to come and eat, but let the cubs eat first. As everything in nature, nothing is wasted, and as you can see, the female was in fact licking all the blood that was on the wildebeest, because that in fact has food value. And they'll eat all the soft tissue first, and then finally get to the real meat and bones. But the male just stayed away and probably came and ate at night. So here you can see the female actually staring out in the distance, probably at the male. The one cub is to her back, mouth basically all bloody. Another cub is towards the head, and the second female, you can see her ears. She's actually now eating from the other side of the wildebeest. So interesting situation, and we left because we had to leave the park and come back the next morning, and I'll show you in the next clip what transpired. So here you can see the carcass is pretty much all done. The male has had his fill. He's now just sitting while the female continues to eat. And then he'll go and start eating, because I don't think they're going to waste anything. The jackals have now arrived. This is actually early morning, and you'll see one, and then there's some more, and then the vultures realize that there's been a kill, so they'll come to see what they can grab. The jackal will go pretty close to the carcass, but knowing fully well that they don't want to get smacked by the male, they'll just stay in the vicinity till they can get something to eat. In this particular case, I think we left, the jackals got nothing, and the vultures eventually will get whatever is left over. But this is what life in the Serengeti. A Tanzania or an African series wouldn't be complete without at least one image of a hyena. This hyena was on this carcass. It's an old carcass. There was no meat left on it, but I just liked the juxtaposition of the way he's looking, and the fact that there's no food makes for an interesting composition. So with that, there was one other interesting event that I was really looking forward to, so we'll move to the next clip. October is not the best time to really see the migration. Most of the migration is over, and by the time I got there, they were saying that maybe there'll be some small crossings, but you won't see anything really large. This particular case, these wildebeest had in fact gone to the edge of the water, and the crocs were fairly dominant in that space, so they decided not to cross. What you'll see here is interesting. The zebras also cross with the wildebeest, but they wait till the very end, and they'll cross after all the wildebeest have basically gone over to the other side. And the reason for that is that they're smart, and they don't want the crocs to get them. So if the crocs have been able to get enough food to keep them away and at bay, then the zebras will cross over and get to the other side without any of them getting killed. Yet on occasion they do become food for the Nile crocodile, that is a very, very powerful creature in the Mara River. So this is a typical scene where you will find elephants and the young. The young are always protected. This particular baby is sleeping, so the elephants will stay till such time as the baby gets up, and once the baby's up, they'll nudge it forward and they'll move on to the next location or to go and forage. But as long as the baby is asleep, the baby will be fully protected. They will guard her from anything and everything. Here you can see a mother and its calf. They're eating, and the left side of the image, or the right flank, is basically exposed as far as the calf is concerned. So another elephant shows up and will get to the side that is exposed so that the calf is now fully protected again. So yes, that afternoon we had a crossing. It was really incredible to see the way the wildebeest come into the Mara River, so much so that the calm waters are now becoming brown with the amount of activity and the number of wildebeest that crossed. The video clip that you're about to see basically is an area where we probably had one of the largest crossings of the season. And the only reason why I can say that is that my guide, who's really exceptional, informed me that he had never seen something this large take place, and particularly so late in the year. So this is in the morning. After the failed crossing, we went over to the second location where we did have a small crossing, nothing really exceptional, but at least it gives you an idea of what transpires. Now, that afternoon, we found across the river there was just herds and herds of wildebeest coming together, and keeping my fingers crossed that we would be able to really see a migration and a river crossing. You can see it's just unbelievable, the hundreds of wildebeest. And then the crossing started. It was a mind-blowing sight to see. Absolutely fantastic. The way they jump on top of each other, the way I'm surprised that half of them don't break their legs. But the crocodiles were around, and it's interesting that with such a large crossing, there was only one wildebeest that was taken down by the crocodile. I think when you have such large numbers come across, that it's confusing for the crocs to figure out which one may be the weaker one and which one to get. But this was a culmination of an event that I've been hoping I'd get to see one day, and I was not disappointed. Thank you for watching. As this decade comes to a close and we enter a new year, I would like to thank each one of you for your friendship, support, and encouragement in 2019. And please do let me know in the comments below what you would like me to cover in future episodes. And if you like the content, please do give it a thumbs up. And if you have not yet, please subscribe and activate the notification icon. Wish you and yours all happiness and prosperity in 2020.